Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Welcome to Scene a Nerd presents Blurred Track. Last week in Star Trek, I'm Will. This week, we have major Strange New Worlds reveals involving the future of Captain James T. Kirk. David Marcus, Kirk's son, is officially coming to Season 4. Giving the series an opportunity to explore Kirk as a young father before the events of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. What could this reveal mean for Kirk's character, his relationship with Carol Marcus, and the future of Strange New Worlds? We'll get into all of that. Plus, I have some other Star Trek stories that you might have missed this week. So, let's engage. The top story comes to us from the upcoming cover story from SX Magazine on Cinema Blend, and it was written by Mick Jost. This magazine article is coming out on July the 15th, 1 week before the premiere of Strange New World Season 4. And in the interview of this, one of the stories in this cover story is an interview that talks with the show producer Henry Alonso and what the writer's room wanted to explore with James Kirk's relationship with the young David Marcus. And the goal is apparently to add to the story that we know and not retcon previous canon. Myers said, quote, "I don't want to call it a rewrite, but it's like a rethink. The experience of David was not a part of the series because they didn't really figure out David until the movies. Kirk is heroic, and none of us wanted to imagine that he is a lousy father. So that offered a lot of opportunities about how to get into his mind emotionally." Myers also went on to say that every new thing is like going back and trying to reimagine the things we know now as if we were doing it then. That's actually the joy of doing a prequel. You get to live in the moment, knowing the future, showing things that they probably hadn't planned to do back in the day, end quote. I have to say, I really, really like this idea because I'm very excited to see how Kirk was as a young father and his relationship with Carol Marcus. Just to give you a quick summary of what happened in Star Trek II and Star Trek III. Carol and David were first introduced to us as fans in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, under the crazy circumstances of that movie where Khan was trying to get the Genesis device, who Carol and David were the scientists behind the team that developed that device. And so when Kirk sees David as a young man, that was the first time he had seen him in years in the Genesis cave. And so, we do get a little bit of exposition between Kirk and Carol as far as David being raised by Carol, Kirk staying away as apparently the arrangement that he and Carol had. And so they really just were thrown together and really didn't have a long time to really build on their relationship. And then, of course, we go to Star Trek III. David's exploring the Genesis planet, and sadly, he was murdered by the Klingons. And so we never got to see Kirk as a father to David as an adult. So it's very exciting to see how their life was as whenever David was very young and how much time he got to spend with them and all those things. And also, what was I guess we'll explore why Carol and Jim decided to basically have Jim stay away. And it was touched on a little bit in Star Trek II when Carol just calls Jim out and just says, "Hey, were we together? Were we going to be?" So yeah, I'm really excited to see all this because I love a good character story, sometimes more so than boom explosions and space battles and all of that. So character to me is always the king, and exploring why characters do things and the motivations for it, I'm all there for it. So let me know your thoughts about this as we get into Star Trek Strange New World Season 4. But before we jump into the rest of this week's Star Trek news, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Strange New Worlds bringing David Marcus into Season 4? Are you excited to see this unexplored part of James T. Kirk's life? Or do you have concerns about how the series may handle it? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy Star Trek news, discussion, and analysis, hit the like button, subscribe to Scene a Nerd, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next edition of Last Week in Star Trek. Now, let's get back to the other news that's coming up that was dropped this week is details on the upcoming Star Trek Hall H panel at San Diego Comic-Con. Now, the Star Trek Universe panel in Hall H, and Hall H, for folks who may not know, that is the biggest venue at San Diego Comic-Con. That's the prime space you want to have. Will happen on July the 25th, and we'll immediately look at the future of the franchise as well as the past, because this is the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and that panel is going to start at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, and it runs for 90 minutes. The Strange New Worlds panel will have cast members from the show, including Anson Mount, who plays Pike, Rebecca Romaine, who plays Number One, Ethan Peck, who plays Spock, Christina Chong, who plays Lon Nooney Singh, will be there, Celia Rose Gooding, who plays Uhura, will be there, Melissa Navia, who plays Ortegas, and Paul Wesley, who plays James T. Kirk, all will be in attendance, as well as executive producers and co-showrunners Akiva Goldsman and the aforementioned Henry Alonzo Myers, as well as executive producer Alex Kurtzman. So they'll be on the panel. In previous years, I've been able to stream just my commentary on news that's coming out of Hall H, and so I hope to do that on the 25th as well. Stay tuned for that and details. If I do, I'll drop it down on our socials. But that is happening. Also happening immediately after the Strange New Worlds panel is a 60th anniversary panel that is going to be hosted by Gene Roddenberry's son and Majel Barrett's son, Eugene Roddenberry. He's going to be introducing a panel with actors from across the franchise. So Michael Dorn, who played Worf on Next Generation and DS9, will be there. Robert Picardo, who played the Doctor in Voyager and Starfleet Academy, and also appeared in Star Trek Prodigy. Connor Trenier is going to represent the Enterprise cast. Cirque Lofton is going to represent the DS9 cast. Doug Jones is there for Discovery. Michelle Hurd for Star Trek Picard. Jerry O'Connell, who was on Lower Decks and is also married to Rebecca Romaine, will be there for Lower Decks. He was First Officer Ransom on the Cerritos. Christina Chong will represent the Strange New Worlds cast. Kareem Diane, who will represent the Starfleet Academy cast. And George Takei will represent the original series cast, given that basically we only have George, Walter, and William Shatner still with us. So very excited to see that panel, and of course hosted by Rod Roddenberry, who is very caretaker of the Roddenberry estate, and it'll be so excited to see that. Also, if you're lucky enough to be in San Diego, there's going to be a bunch of events that will be going on, including the original USS Enterprise model provided by the Roddenberry estate. If you haven't seen the news recently that Rod Roddenberry was able to get that back, and they've been actually restoring that model, it's done. And he's going to be bringing it to San Diego Comic-Con so you can see the original USS Enterprise model. There'll be a booth at the convention floor. Booth number is 3529 if you're going to be there. You can play arcade-style games. There'll be a panel on the opening day at Comic-Con at 11 a.m. where fans can catch the Star Trek The Collector Frontier panel in room 5AB. And there's also many, many other things. So if you're lucky enough to be at San Diego, there's going to be not only events there in Hall H, but also things going throughout the weekend. So let me know if you're going to be there, and then also share to our socials here on the Cine Nerd channel, or to my personal, your photos and things that are happening there. I would love to see them, and maybe I'll try to share some of them here on the next Last Week in Star Trek. So that is all I have for this edition of Cine Nerd Presents Blurred Trek, Last Week in Star Trek. So let me know again, what are your thoughts on the reveal about David Marcus appearing in Season 4, Strange New Worlds? Will it give us a new perspective on Jim Kirk, not just as a future Starfleet captain and legend, but as a father? Let me know in the comments. And also, if you're going to San Diego Comic-Con, let me know. Like I said, I also will try to stream some of the events for the panel if you can't catch it on your socials, what's happening there here on the channel as well on the 25th. And I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're there, like this video and subscribe to Cine Nerd for more Star Trek news, reviews, and discussions. And we also discuss other things on the channel as well. Right now, we're in the middle of House of the Dragon Season 3, as well as X-Men 97 Season 2. So again, I'm Will. Thanks so much for watching. Live long and prosper. And I'll see you next time on Last Week in Star Trek.